Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to the Lenox Board of Selectmen regular meeting Tuesday, November 30 at 6 p.m. here in Town Hall. I have one announcement from the chair. I would like to congratulate a former Lenox student who is currently studying at Endicott College, who received a prize in the Bridging Divides Healing Communities Youth Film Challenge. Tommy Tranfaglia, who's now going to Endicott College, won second place and $1,000 for his short film Misunderstood. There are going to be 2 upcoming free screenings for his film and the other films that won awards in Berkshire County in this Berkshire Film and Media Collaborative competition. The winners will be screened on Saturday, December 4th at the Crandall Theater in Chatham, New York, and also on December 12th at the Daniel Art Center at Simon's Rock. Attendance is limited for both of these events, and safety protocols will be in place at both venues. This film challenge was open to local filmmakers ages 14 to 24, led again by the Berkshire Film and Media Collaborative and the Civic Life Project, and funding came from the Berkshire Taconic Community Foundation. You can get additional details at www.youthfilmchallenge.com. But we'd like to congratulate Tommy Tranfaglia for his award. That's fantastic. He came in second place. Now I'm going to move on to acceptance of the minutes for November 17th.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the November 17, 2021 meeting of the Select Board.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to Citizens Open Forum. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? Seeing that there are none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. There is a donation acceptance from the fire department, and that's all we've got.
So I'll make a motion to approve the donation to the fire department.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Okay, moving on to general business. This evening, we have a presentation by the Board of Assessors for the fiscal year 22 tax classification public hearing. I'd like to welcome the Board of Assessors. Tom Romeo and Wayne Lemansky are representing the board, and they'll be providing a presentation to us tonight.
Should we open the public hearing?
Oh yes, let's open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Tom, Wayne. Appreciate you being here.
Hi, folks. Thanks for having us again. It's that time of year. What I'd like to do is just make a couple preliminary comments and then have Chris go through all the analysis and the numbers themselves. But the first thing I'd like to do is just introduce Lisa Wellspeak, who joined us in June. We're very, very pleased to have her, and we're very thankful for the hard work that she put in terms of transitioning from one town to another and a completely different database system and stuff. And she's really put in a great deal of effort, and she's really a pleasure to work with. And we've heard a lot of nice comments from folks who've interacted with her. So we're very fortunate to have her. So thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Tom.
In addition to Wayne, we also have Jamie Messina on our board now. She was elected in May, so she's a new addition. She took Paula's position there. So this year is a very interesting year, where our total real and personal property growth increased about 9.3%. Residential is 8.6%. Commercial is 5.8%. Personal property, mostly utilities, because of reconfiguration of how they handle their inventories, was up significantly. We had another good year in terms of new growth. We had $420,161 worth of new growth. I remember last year there was some concern. We had like 500 and something in terms of what would go forward. And again, we were pleased to have that. The challenge that came in, that presents itself tonight, is that the residential assessments increase a lot more than the commercial. So what that does is, in terms of you have to look at your balance. And this isn't unique to us. I'm sure you've read the other articles in the paper from other towns, Barrington, North Adams. And they have the same thing where the residential is going up faster than the commercial. So what that does is it really challenges us to look at the split in terms of moving the balance back and forth so that the residential doesn't get overburdened by that. So in order for us to come up with a recommendation, Lisa and Brenda, with great assistance with Chris, went through several scenarios in terms of with this factor, this would be the impact for residential, this would be the impact for commercial, and looking at that. So they did a great deal of analysis to do that. And again, we thank them for their hard work doing that. Next year is going to even be a bigger challenge. While both commercial and residential are projected to go up, the residential is projected to go up at least 10% higher than the commercial. So again, that sliding scale of those ratios of looking back and forth, and again, it's not a one thing or another. It's just how do we slide that scale back and forth. So you'll see that. As a result of that, what's going to have to happen is during this course of the year, we're going to have to really try to be inventive and creative in terms of looking at different models in different scenarios so that we can look at ways of softening that burden on the residential side. We'll see how that plays out. But right now, you all know it in terms of the houses that have been sold, in terms of the rates that they're getting. And so we know that those are going to go up significantly. So having said that, I'll just turn it over to Chris and let him go through the analysis that we brought forward with his great assistance.
Thank you, Chairman Romeo. As Tom was saying, this was a really challenging year, so I thank you to you, Wayne and Jamie for putting in more meetings, I think, around this tax rate setting process than you would see in a typical year. And then culminating, of course, into tonight. So tonight, for a refresher for the board as well as general information for the public, unlike what you might read in the newspaper about a tax classification hearing, there really is a really specific role you're fulfilling here, and that's not to set the tax rate necessarily, but to establish what's called a residential factor, and that's embodied in the language in statute. So when we get to the end of the night, we'll hopefully, if you don't choose to continue the hearing, if you choose to make your decision tonight, you'll be voting to set a residential factor, which basically determines the burden of the portion of the levy that's borne by the residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. And there's excerpts from, it's governed by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56. So we're not setting a tax rate tonight, but we do have projections on what the rate may be, depending on which residential factor you choose. The slide that I've got up, that I've provided in the packets, is just our tax levy dashboard. This is the tax levy dashboard that we would show typically at town meeting. It hasn't been updated for FY 2023, but the FY 22 projection is based on the recommendation that the assessors and staff, frankly, are bringing before you tonight. We are once again in lockstep with the Board of Assessors in terms of our recommendation. So it doesn't always happen that way in a lot of towns. It is the case here in Lenox. So we're looking at another year, as Chairman Romeo mentioned, of $420,000 of new growth, far in excess of our historical norms, which is good. It helps take some of the edge off of the levy. We've got a levy that's increasing by $400,000. So you'll see in later slides why that's significant. The excess levy capacity, this is the amount of money that the town meeting and the selectmen and the assessors can collectively, and the school committee and finance committee can collectively assess without requesting an override. And that's been building and building and building. I think when I first started, we were at around $100,000. And that number has grown to $3.9 million of untaxed capacity. So that's money that's in the bank account of our taxpayers as opposed to the treasury of the town through your fiscal management and stewardship, along with your partners on the Board of Assessors, the school committee, and the finance committee, and ultimately town meeting. So I bring that to your attention just as a congratulatory factual statement that you're really staying well within your legal means, which is not the case in every town or city. And this year we're back at our historic run rate of 2.5% on the total overall levy. And again, most of that is absorbed through new growth. So some of the factors that lead to the actual bill that you get in the mail that might force that bill higher. Of course, it starts with the appropriations that are made at town meeting that require funding through the property tax. And this year, that levy, as I said before, is going up about $400,000. And that tends to want to push the tax bills up, as does the relative change in residential versus commercial property value that Chairman Romeo talked about in his opening comments. The nature of the marketplace right now and the relative growth of residential over commercial wants to push that tax bill for residents up. On the flip side, there are a couple of factors working in our favor that want to push the tax bills lower, specifically new growth. I think this is the first year, I could be wrong, where new growth actually exceeded the growth in the levy by $20,000. So that's helpful. That helps mitigate the impact of levy growth. And also this year, there's a substantial growth in the personal property taxes attributable just to public utilities. It's $12.5 million in growth. That's almost 69% increase in value there. So that's helping to take some of the edge off as well, both the commercial, industrial, and residential sectors. So that all helps.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Is that a one-time thing?
It is.
So we don't count on it. I mean, it's just this year.
We didn't count on that when we were setting the budget, so it's a helpful, unexpected development, so that's good. As is the $420,000 in new growth. Typically, our historical norm has been somewhere between 150 and 200, so that's helpful as well. So, in the course of the Board of Assessors deliberations on what to recommend and what to bring forward tonight, we put together this pro forma tax factor option table that deals in increments to try and explain the average impact on homes and commercial property in a way that is semi-intelligible to a normal person. We didn't quite get all the way there, but this is about as close as we could get. Here in the line that's highlighted in pink, that's the current residential factor for FY21 and going back several years. That's the residential factor we've been working on. That basically means we've shifted about 15% of the levy burden over that would normally be on the residents in a single tax rate scenario over to the commercial, industrial, and personal property sectors. And so the impact of that would, if we were to take this year's assessment data, would result in a $10.92 tax levy. That's would require a $13.17 tax levy on commercial industrial property to compensate. So we wouldn't have a single tax rate. If the town were to adopt a single tax rate, that is a residential factor of 1, we'd be looking at an $11.41 tax rate. That's at the very top line. And then we extend the table all the way down to a residential factor of 0.861, which would result in the statutory maximum for the town of Lenox of 1.5 on the commercial, industrial, and personal side, and that would drive the residential rate down to $9.82, which sounds attractive until you compare it to the $17.21 impact that it would have on commercial, industrial, and personal property. So we're not recommending that. However, what both the assessors, with the concurrence of staff, are recommending tonight is a modest, small shift more towards commercial, industrial, and personal property from our historic norm over the last several years. And, it's a relatively small shift going from 1.154 to 1.179, and that's highlighted in the yellow. That would be the adoption of a residential factor of 0.950. So this is the residential factor measured on a number of different types of property of our recent historic experience. So the residential factor of 0.957, which has been in place for a couple of years now, with this year's data, would result in a tax rate of $10.92 for a single-family home or a median family home, any residential property. On the residential single-family home side, you'd see about a $136 increase on your average single-family home. And you'd see a $20 decrease on the average commercial or industrial property. It's and then when you compare to the tax bill on a median family home, the tax bill would go up $141. And this is all due to the disproportionate growth in value experienced in the residential versus the commercial industrial sector. That's all that is. It's the same levy growth. We're not raising any more revenue, no matter how we shift it. This is just how it would shake out if we did everything the same as we've been doing for the last 3, 4, 5 years. Results obviously in a spread of almost 3 3/4% between the 0.1% decrease on the commercial side and the 3.6% increase on the median residential side. So, sure.
So the total value in 21 went from 686 and in 22 to 756 for a $70 million change. Is that due to new growth or reassessment?
That's all. That's a combination of both, I think. Yeah, but mostly increase in value.
Increase in value.
Yeah. Some new growth is factored in there.
Okay.
The number of parcels haven't really increased, it's mostly value.
Okay, thank you.
You might see improvements to individual properties, though. Yeah. So this this spread of between 3.5% and 4% across just these three measures of central tendency seems unpalatable at first glance. Ordinarily, in years past, we would have approved this rate because the volatility wouldn't have been so strong. So what we set to work doing is to try and find something that kept the spread a little bit closer, and we came up with a scenario that results in a residential rate of $10.84 per thousand and a commercial rate of $13.45 per thousand. If you did it this way, that would require approval of a residential factor of 0.950.
Right.
The average single-family tax bill would go up $99. The average commercial tax bill would go up $395, and the average the median single-family home would go up $111. So that's a spread anywhere from 1.99 or we'll call it 2% on the average single-family home bill, and then 2.8% on the median single-family home bill, with the commercial being a little closer to the average. So you're looking at a spread there of 0.8%. As opposed to over 3.5% if we were to do it the way we normally do. So we've made it a little bit tighter. It's not perfect, but we've made it much tighter than it was under our historic split. And it's a relatively modest shift of a couple more percent going the way of commercial. Again, not perfect, but I think it's much more equitable, much more narrow, much tighter than you would normally see. And certainly tighter than what you would see if we were to do things the way we've always done them. So this does get a little confusing, because I think when folks start to read about or hear about a single versus a split rate, it's sort of human nature to view it as a binary choice, and that's simply not true, right? I mean, what the fact of the matter is that towns can make incremental adjustments to the levy burden in ways that make sense, and that's what I think the assessors have done here. So with that, I mean, I think it's the assessors' feeling. They voted earlier today to make this recommendation to you, and staff absolutely concurs that to shift the tax burden of the current split rate more towards commercial sector, and again in an incremental, not a dramatic, but an incremental way, makes sense. So that would require a majority vote by this board, and we've provided a draft motion here that would accomplish that. But you undoubtedly have a lot of questions and observations that I think between Lisa, myself, Chairman Romeo, and Mr. Lemansky, we're prepared to answer.
Yeah, I want to thank everybody's incredible work on this. I know that you've had several meetings over the last week alone, trying to put this information together in a presentable format, and Lisa Wellspeak, our new assessor, has done a terrific job with that, with Brenda Mara's help as our treasurer, and the assessors, Tom Romeo, Wayne Lemansky, and Jamie Messina have all done yeoman service over the last week, specifically with meeting after meeting. This is the part of government where you're making the sausage, and it's not pretty, but it needs to be done, and we as a select board are going to need to come up with some creative ways to look at how this is going to continue to be an issue as rates, assessment rates increase. Dave pointed out very tellingly that it's been like an $80 million increase in the value of real estate in this town over the last year.
That's not a bad thing.
No, that's not a bad thing,
all right.
but we are not unique. This is happening all over the country. And
Yeah.
so everyone is grappling
I'm not
with.
sure that the rate that we're experiencing it.
Well, that's true, but I'd say in places like Austin and San Diego, and we're lucky because we're in that club.
Right.
So the good news is tax rates are sort of offset by the new growth. We do have that mitigating factor with the new growth taking over some of the increases that would be foisted upon both the commercial and the residential sector. So we've got good stuff going on there, but I think we're also going to need to look at some creative mechanisms for residential folk, which is why I sent everybody information on looking at a residential exemption, because I'd like us to start to think about that, because next year, if assessments continue to increase, I think we're going to have to look at giving some relief to people below the median, and as some other towns in Berkshire County have also been weighing that particular policy option. So I think it's important for us to discuss, but that's my 2 cents.
I certainly agree, Madam Chairman, with what you just said. But we're kind of like with a two-edged sword. I mean, we're the selectmen. You guys tell us what we got to collect, but we've got to protect our long-term homeowners, our retirees, which are growing more and more every day from from an over tax burden. Because you can talk to people, and I have. I mean, it's great to have the equity in your property increasing all the time, but you can't spend it, and it could cost you more money because of the valuation, and your income isn't going up anywhere close to what the rate of inflation has been in our real estate industry. So it's a difficult topic, which is why I want to get involved, certainly get involved in that discussion that you're proposing. So you guys do a great job. Thank you. I mean, it's great to get all these figures in. Helps us make intelligent decisions. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah. I think Mary Beth's hitting the nail on the head. We have to, and Tommy alluded to it, and Chris alluded to it, that we have to look at, because next year's gonna be worse. We have to look at ways, think outside the box to get to where we can, as you say, the older people and people who've been here a long time can afford to still be here and pay their tax bills.
Right.
And I think the residential tax thing is, in my opinion, a great thing to look at, definitely to look at. And there may be something else, I'm not saying that's the end all, but I think we absolutely have to look at that. There's no question in my mind, we have to look at that and other things. And, as read the paper, as Tommy said, every town's struggling the same way we're struggling right now. In Berkshire County, we've been reading it. I don't think any town is happy at this
Right.
moment, and it's tough.
Yeah, but they'll definitely for the folks who've been here, who continue to, stay in their homes, who want to, live out their golden years in their homes, and their incomes aren't increasing. We need to figure out a way to mitigate that. And so I think maybe a working group might be in order. And if we could kind of kick that off at the first of the year in discussion with the assessors and with Lisa, and kind of try to get our hands around it so that we're not trying to figure this out in October next year.
Yeah.
If we can have a game plan, going into the summer, that might be a really great.
Maybe Lisa could find us some examples of towns that have implemented it.
Yeah, there is one that I spoke to the woman. It was down by the Cape, I believe. Did I tell you about that?
You sure did.
Can you remind me what town it was?
I don't remember. There's only 16
Yeah, there's not
in
many.
Massachusetts so far, and a lot of them are cities,
Okay.
quite frankly.
The
But
reason I spoke to the woman is because they use the same software company, same company as PK.
Oh, good.
So that's why I was talking to her about it, and that's how it got brought up, that they do this residential exemption.
Okay.
And she just said, it was tough starting it, but after a few years, it got easier. But the beginning, there's a lot of administrative work to be done.
Great, well, we've got good administrators here, so
Yeah.
with some discussion, I think. that'd
Yeah,
be
work
great.
is work, and that's fine, we can do work. We
Yeah.
just have to find something that we can work with to make it happen. That's the key.
And to be able to explain it so that everybody understands that we're really trying to work with people, so that everything's fair. We've got people who are longtime owner occupants, we're helping them stay in their homes so they can afford to stay in their homes.
Right. Okay.
I really appreciate the efforts on the Board of Assessors has placed on this analysis, and I can see where it was substantial, and thank you very much. And Chris, and your ability to translate that to us took effort and your commitment to making us all work too, and I appreciate that as well.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I know it was not a short weekend for you. You didn't exactly have the holiday weekend that you were planning on. So, so do we want to entertain
Yeah.
a motion on
Do we need to close the public hearing
Close
first?
the public
Oh,
hearing.
probably, that's probably a great idea. Let's have a motion to close the
I'll
public
make a
hearing.
motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And now,
I'll make a motion to adopt a residential factor of 0.950 for the purpose of determining the fiscal 2022 tax rate.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you, gentlemen. And thank you, assessors and Lisa Wellspeak, Tom Romeo, Wayne Lemansky. I appreciate the time that you've spent over the last week. It's been a lot. And,
Chris has helped a great deal.
yeah,
Really has.
Yes, he does.
he does. I mean, he's, like I
He
said,
sweated over it, we know
he
that.
didn't have much of a Thanksgiving weekend. And I know that you all had a part in that as
That's why
well.
we brought him back.
Yeah, and again, we'd like to thank Chris, because he's been really great.
He always is.
It's a good group of folks to be able to work with. But as we said, there's, and I think Mr. Lane said it as well as anyone, we've got a lot to focus on for next year.
Yeah.
This was tough, but next year is going to take a lot more focus.
Yeah. So,
But we appreciate your willingness to trust our presentation and our judgment on this. So,
I mean, tonight's meeting was good. I mean, we tried to help the taxpayer. I mean, that's got to get through.
right.
I mean, the average tax, and we didn't hurt the commercial taxpayer really. So, anytime we can decrease that factor on the real estate to help compensate for some of the increases that they're facing through reassessment and increased values, that's a good thing.
Absolutely, very well said, thank you. Terrific. Now I would entertain any Board of Selectmen liaison reports. Nothing? Okay, great. The Affordable Housing Trust, we just received some clarifying questions from the Department of Housing and Community Development on the two affordable homes we're planning to sell. It looks like that'll be happening in the new year, as we still have some issues outstanding with DHCD. And otherwise,
I'm good.
okay,
Thank you.
Nothing to report.
great. Thank you, gentlemen. I would like to say that our next regular calendar meeting is going to be next Wednesday, but it's actually going to be tomorrow night at 6 o'clock for a short all-alcohol license posted meeting.
We just can't proxy that in tonight.
I wish we could, but I don't have the paperwork.
well, and this is the result of an advertised public hearing that frankly escaped my attention and I think the chair's attention when we were discussing the scheduling of the classification hearing at our last meeting. So while it is unfortunate, it's also necessary.
A lot of the rules with ABCC are very frustrating and they.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's government at its best.
It certainly is.
And,
Red tape.
No, we certainly want to accommodate the applicants, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that the applicant's attorney is going to be here as well as the applicant, so I hate to do this, but we'll all be back again tomorrow night at 6 o'clock.
That's okay. You good with that?
it'll be quick.
Got it. Okay.
Super. Well, thank you very much, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.